It's me, SPILLIN. A bunch of PS1 games. I can just walk in and out of your store. Hello gamers, it's me, SPILLIN. It's my show. Glad to be back, and hello gamers, it's me, SPILLIN. This is my show. Glad to be back to do another video. Actually took a week off. I just needed a break, a mental break between work and still in the transitions of moving and stuff like that. And in the next month or so, I'll be completely moved to my new place. So been dealing with that, and then just work in itself, and then I've been just focusing on just gaming out on one particular game and just solely focused in on that. But anyway, as you can see, the title of this video is what makes a good game, because I've been thinking about that, because I've been thinking between the retro and the thing that made you passionate about video games, there were certain elements that drew you in, kept you locked in, and made you want to go back and play that game and beat that game, and then play games somewhat similar to that, or you wanted some sort of aspect of things to measure up to the same thing. So I came up with 5 key ingredients that makes a good video game, in my opinion. Tell me what your thoughts are. Like, comment, and subscribe as always, and we'll just chat it up. The first thing that I came up with is a storyline. Now, for me, when it comes to the storyline, it has to be simplistic. I mean, it don't need to be complex. I think developers nowadays versus back then, we knew that when we looked at Mega Man, we knew that he had to defeat the robots. He was trying to save the world. Dr. Light was his creator. Dr. Wily was the evil guy. Super Mario Brothers. I mean, how more simplistic can the story get than saving the princess, going through all these stages, battling Cooper? I mean, it pretty much, or Bowser. I mean, that was about as simple as it gets. I mean, but then when I transitioned to the last gen and even some of the current gen stuff, there are certain games that just stood out to me that kept a certain fluid way of telling the story, keeping you locked in, and didn't lose you. Because I can name countless amounts of games that just was not interesting to me at all, because the storyline just was boring. The cutscenes were entirely too long. The dialogue was not good. The characters didn't flow well together, and so I feel like that's definitely a big part of it. So the story has to keep you locked in. And so once you hear a good storyline, for me, once I hear a good story, it automatically locks me in. It makes me interested in the character, and then that makes me want to go run out and buy the game. Number 2 for me would be graphics. I mean, I am a sucker for a nice, smooth, high-def video game, but at the same time, it's not always about the graphics. It's about the hang-ups. It's about the glitches. It's about things not being clear and stuff like that. So for me, when I think about graphics, I think about it tied it in with the storyline, allowing art to be conveyed in a certain way to where I can understand it and I can see it now. I can see where you're going with the storyline, because it's one thing to tell a story, but to be able to draw it out and to be able to use certain graphics, not so many glitches. I understand these open world games, they're notorious for it, and I tell my son all the time, I said, there's no way that game testers, developers can go through the entirety of the game without having glitches. So they're almost the inevitable is bound to happen. But yeah, for me, I love the transition of where graphics are going. And I know there's technology out there to where they can use realistic faces, and they've tested it out, but to the human brain, it's almost too much to comprehend. So the cartoonish graphics is still in our lane. Maybe eventually we'll be more in the 4D, 5D, whatever D is out there that we haven't touched on. But I know that the technology is there. It's just too much for the brain. But I do like where graphic wise the processors that we can use for PC, the technology that we can use for PS4 and the Xbox One and stuff like that. I like what I see. It's more detail oriented. Things are more shaped. You can see things in a more rich and more fluid. And see, that's the big aspect that draws me in. But other aspects about the consoles, about video games, keeps me locked in. Number 3 for me has to be the characters. The characters have to have some sort of importance, and they have to have some sort of relatability to each part of the game. Like I said, the storyline and the graphics. But then when you start thinking about the characters of a video game, those basically become the landmark, or they become the voice of that story. Like Jak and Daxter, you wanted to know everything about him. Ratchet, you wanted to know everything about him. Mario, you wanted to go in a little bit deeper. I don't remember too many of his stories really going in deeper, but the biggest the biggest game that I can think of right now at this moment is probably one of my favorite games. It's definitely in my top 5 is Mass Effect 2. Not only did they utilize storyline really well, graphics really well, but the characters, each and every character keeps a certain position in my head, and they've managed to lock in, and I was deeply invested every time I went to another planet. So Mass Effect 2 was definitely right up there as far as the best way I can explain how characters should work together, tell a story about them. You will go into each planet, you will find more information about them and how all these people were eventually going to work together. Number 4 for me is playability. Not only want to replayability, but just playability in itself to completion. I like a game that just makes me want to drop everything. And for me, with such hyperactive personality, how I go up and down, and I got a little ADD here and ADHD here, and all the other little things that just be running through my head, and how I can just switch modes from one game to another. Because playability for me comes through pickups throughout the entire game. Like, I like to pick up certain things. I like to collect certain items. I'm that guy that when I see a 0/100, I actually like to be able to get 100 out of 100 items for whatever. Like when I was playing Infamous, it's like 300 something shards that you had to get. And I want to scour throughout the whole entire game. Crackdown would probably be another prime example. I've never got to play it. I need to get that game, but it's another prime example of just accumulating all these things that keep you coming back, and then of course getting the trophies, achievements, and stuff like that. But playability or replayability for me is that it's something that's left undone that makes me want to come back, try it again, or even level up. That the story was so good, the storyline, the characters, the graphics and everything, in my opinion, was so good, it stays in my collection, because that's where I've gotten to. That's why it's easy for me to get rid of certain games, because they just don't have that lasting impression. And so the ones that do have that lasting impression, that's why I can go back to it and play it again and just have fun, and just wow out on it. And then number 5, last but not least, is music. The music has to be almost synonymous with everything that I talked about today. The storyline, the graphics, the characters, the playability, the music, all these things, all these elements. Whether the music is somewhat soothing, mesmerizing, upbeat, like I'll never forget the music out of Ni no Kuni. I'll never forget the music out of Ocarina of Time, or Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario 2, 3. whatever. The opening music out of God of War 1. I mean, even the Getaway. I mean, they use all kinds of music everywhere you went. Like, even when you got out the car, because GTA wouldn't play a lot of music when you stepped out the car. It would only be inside the car. What was really smooth about the Getaway, and if you haven't played that, you definitely need to get that for the PS2. It's about this guy who wife and son is kidnapped. They kill his wife in the very beginning. No spoilers here on that one. And they kidnap his son, and it's in London. It takes place in London, which is even better. But even when he dies, there's a certain balance in the music that just stays in your mind. And, you know, so music is just another aspect of things that I love to hear, and it stays with me forever. I mean, I know people go out and purchase soundtracks just because they love the music in a video game so much. So those are my 5 things. Tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me what you think about what a good game is. I mean, old school, current gen, in between. I want to hear them all, because there may be more games that I can add into my collection. But other than that, I'm SPILLIN 79, and I'm out.